It really is an honor to be standing before you tonight. I was just talking with Danny before the services, trying to think about how long it had been since I've taught from this pulpit, and it's been at least 16 or 17 years since I've stood here and delivered. I still have, believe it or not, some of those original lessons are really short talks that I gave long ago, and if you were here back then, I appreciate your patience through that, but also your encouragement. Long ago, many of you here were very encouraging and certainly helped me a lot back then, so I'm very grateful for that. During our young speakers meeting a few weeks ago, a couple of the brothers who gave short talks during that mentioned a couple of the aspects of the nature of God, and that really sort of piqued an interest in me to study that a little bit further and actually study that more fully than really I ever had before. And so tonight I'm going to talk about, I guess, the results of that study. And you can see from the board there are a few of these are, I believe, some of the most common aspects that we regularly think about and regularly talk about when we consider God and His nature and the aspects to His divinity. So we'll talk about these really just briefly. I'm going to read these passages and kind of talk about what especially the first three are. And then there's some other aspects that really, to me, sort of rounded out my image of God and kind of gave me some deeper understanding, I guess, of His divinity and a greater appreciation for Him in the study. So I want to focus on those things a bit more, but we can't talk about the nature of God and not discuss these issues here to start with. So we're going to start in 1 John. Chapter 3 and verse 20. It says, "For if our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart and knows all things." This word omniscient, this is not something that we regularly say in our language, except when we're talking about God, really. But this word simply means all-knowing. The God that we serve is a God that knows everything. He knows our heart. He knows every aspect of our lives and the world around us, His creation around us. The second one here, omnipotent, Revelation 20 and verse 6. Revelation 20 verse 6 says, "Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with Him 1,000 years." This word omnipotent means all-powerful. The God that we serve is a God that has ultimate and unlimited power. There is nothing that He is not capable of doing, nothing that He is unable to do based on the power that He has. He can do all things. And then finally, the third there, omnipresent, the 15th proverb in verse 3. Proverbs 15, verse 3, "The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good." This word, omnipresent, means God is everywhere. He is everywhere at all times, in all places, at all times. This is, again, a word that we generally don't use in our everyday language except when we are referring to God. And then the fourth aspect here is His love. I appreciate Josh's song that he led. It deals obviously very, very appropriately when you're considering the love that God has for us. This is an aspect of God that we do refer to often, and I believe it's good that we do. The love that God has for us is really, it means everything to us. It's the reason that He sent His Son to die for us. And without that, we know we would not have hope of heaven eternally. So God's love for us is vital. And it's important that we share that message with others as well. because the love of God extends to all men, as we know. Our passage here, 1 John chapter 4. Verses 7 through 10. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. In this, the love of God was manifested toward us, that God has sent his only begotten Son into the world, that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. These four aspects to God are the most common that we think about, and probably the most important to know and to have sort of on the tip of our tongue and to bear in mind regularly. But there are a lot of aspects to God that the Bible reveals to us. These four are just sort of some of the most commonly referred to, but the Bible is full of descriptions of God and examples of actions that God does that really reveal a lot to us about him. The first I want to consider that maybe not, it's obvious to us, we know it very well, but I haven't really personally studied it very much before now, is that we serve a creative God. Of course, we have the account of the creation of all the physical world around us, the universe that God created for us there in Genesis chapter 1. This is something we know and study, and from our youth, we grow up hearing and reading these events that took place and are recorded for us there. We can look around at the beauty around us. Here in Tennessee, we live in a very beautiful part of the country, and many here would say it's the best and the best part of the world, and really there's no reason anyone should want to go anywhere else. But when we begin to travel around, we really get a more full perspective of the awesome power, the creative ability that God possesses. When we travel in either direction, east or west, we come across mind-blowing, just incredible mountain ranges that are just awe-inspiring just to take in and see. They are wonderful. And then we travel north. There are thousands of lakes as we go farther north, and then there's tundra above that. And each of these regions sort of has its own completely unique landscape. The animals and the plants that survive there are completely different from things that God created that survive in other parts. And so all these different places just show the vast creative ability that God possesses. And then when we travel even further, we go out to the beaches, and that's a completely different environment. And we go under the sea and the seabed, the things that survive there, the coral reefs that are down there, which are mind-blowingly beautiful and diverse. And there's so much unique creation just in one of those regions. The vast, unique creativeness that God displays with his creation just of the earth reveals his power to us. And the Bible tells us this, and that's just what we can see with the physical, our own naked eyes. When we use telescopes and we look beyond the earth out into space, out into the universe, it just quickly becomes just unbelievable, the creative power that God possesses. When we look at the minute details of his creation down to the cellular level and beyond, it just, I guess I don't have words to put in to express how incredible this is that God is able to do. when we do things that we deem to be creative, really most of what we're doing is just merely a reflection or a different version of God's creation. When we create a painting or a sculpture or some sort of work of art that we deem to be creative, these things are images of a landscape or of people. The most widely regarded beautiful painting, the Mona Lisa, is an image of a woman. This is one of God's creations. The things that we deem to be creative that we do are just simply reflections of God's true, real creative power. And then one of the other aspects of our creative ability that we often think of is our inventiveness. We create or we discover inventions that make our lives better here on this earth, but really what we're doing when we do that is just discovering the physical properties of God's creation. We have things like steam engines and electrical motors and light bulbs, all these things that we invent and we discover and utilize. We're just harnessing the physics that God put into motion and finding ways to make it useful for us. God did all the creating. We're just taking advantage of it and utilizing it. As He, I believe, designed us to do, He designed us with the ability to learn and discover and grow and to utilize His wonderful creation for us. But God is the one who truly possesses the creative power. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 28 says, "Have you not known, have you not heard, the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. His understanding is unsearchable." The God that we serve is a truly and a genuinely creative God, and we are the direct beneficiaries of that creation. One of the aspects of this verse here, verse 28 of Isaiah 40, there's a line there that I hadn't really considered very, very fully or really wondered too much about until going through this study. It says there, He never grows weary. Our God is tireless. And this seems obvious. We serve, as we just talked about, an omnipotent God, a God that has unlimited power and ability. Of course, He wouldn't grow weary or tired or anything of that sort. His power is unlimited. But when we read about creation, we see there that God rested on the seventh day. In Genesis chapter 2, the first two verses, we read about the end of creation. It says, "Thus the heavens and the earth and all the hosts of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended His work which He had done, and He rested on the seventh day from all His work which He had done." I hadn't really considered this very much beyond reading about the creation account and recognizing that God rested from the work. But then when we think about Isaiah 40, it tells us that God does not grow weary or tired. Why did He rest on the seventh day? Many of you probably know the answer to this, but really the explanation is found in the original Hebrew text. The word that is translated to rest there is Shabbath, and it means to cease or put an end to. This was not a recuperative rest like you and I might need if we ever created a universe. We would certainly need a lot of resting from such an event like that. But God does not need to recuperate. He doesn't need to sleep or rest in that way. This seventh day rest is just marking an end to His creation. His 6 days of creation have come to an end, and that is just marking the completion of that. The number 7, of course, in the Bible is very, very commonly used to represent completeness and finality. And this is, I believe, the first time that this is used in this way. This seventh day being a representative of his completed work. A perfect creation has been finished. So rereading Genesis chapter 2 with this reframing here in mind, let's go ahead and pick up verse 3 as well. It says, "Thus the heavens and the earth and all the hosts of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which he had created and made." I also like the way the Hebrew writer refers to this event in Hebrews chapter 4. We'll read that as well. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 4, it says, "For he has spoken in a certain place of the seventh day in this way, and God rested on the seventh day from all his works." Then skipping down to verse 9, "There remains therefore a rest for the people of God, for he who has entered his rest has himself also ceased from his works, as God did from his." God does not grow weary in his work, and the rest that he took there on that seventh day was not a rest from tiredness. It was simply a rest from work. It was a ceasing of his creative ability. God also does not rest when it comes to us as well. He never ceases to bless us. He never ceases to hear our prayers. And this is a wonderful a blessing that we have, that we serve a God that is so powerful that he never takes a break and never rests from his labor of caring for his people. Another few aspects that I want to get through here a little more quickly. God is pure. This means for us that God is true and true to his word. He has promised us many wonderful blessings in this life and beyond, and he is true to his word. His purity guarantees to us that he is going to be true to his word. He cannot lie, and every word uttered by God is true and pure and will come to pass. Titus chapter 1 and verse 2, it says, "In hope of eternal life, which God, who cannot lie, promised before time began." Another aspect of God that we often know and recognize, but we generally don't use this term, our God is immutable. Apologize, that's probably getting kind of low for many. This is a word, again, outside of studying about God or maybe studying physics. This is really not a term that we come across or we generally would say. But simply what this means is that God does not change. The God that we serve is the same God that created everything. He's the same God that dealt with his people throughout history, and it's the same nature and the same aspects to the God that we serve today as the God that has been served throughout time. Malachi chapter 3 and verse 6 tells us this very plainly. Malachi 3 and 6, "For I am the Lord, I do not change." Also James chapter 1 and verse 17, it says, "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there's no variation or shadow of turning." So these are just really just a very small list of the many larger aspects to the nature of God, and there are many things that we also can learn. It seems like every passage we read can tell us something, some little nuance about God, and give us a much deeper knowledge and a deeper understanding of Him. And this is a very valuable thing for us to do as we're reading, to be thinking about what this tells us about God. And that's really one of my favorite things about studying the Old Testament. We have several studies going on right now in the Old Testament, and I'm very grateful for that. Except that I like to study through the Old Testament, and I feel like I should maybe look at something else for a while. But it's very beneficial for a lot of reasons, and certainly one of those is what it tells us about God. This topic really also is something that it's useful for us to know as God's creation, but certainly as Christians, it's vital that we understand the God that we serve as much as we possibly can. And God has revealed a lot about Himself to us, so we can certainly do that. But it's important that we know the nature of God so that we know some things that are not the nature of God. Satan certainly would desire that we would have a skewed or a false image of God for a number of reasons. One, if he can plant a false image of God in the minds of man, then those people might not understand why we should trust and obey God. If someone thinks that God is cruel or unjust or impure, then that would not be a God that person would want to trust and want to obey. So it's important that we recognize what truly is and what is not the image of God. Another reason why Satan would desire to do this is if man's image of God is twisted or skewed in certain ways, then the commands that God does have for us might not be obeyed exactly as they should be. So, for example, something that God is not is tolerant of sin. And I'm only going to discuss one aspect of something that God is not. It's going to be this. God is not tolerant of sin. Satan certainly would have man believe that God would be tolerant of sin, that God would turn a blind eye to certain aspects of our lives, that there are things that certainly a merciful and a loving God would not condemn us for this particular thing. But if it is a sin against the pure nature of God, God cannot turn a blind eye to that. He is righteous, and he is ultimately righteous, and He cannot turn a blind eye to the sins that we commit in our life. The Bible tells us, for example, that all liars will taste death, will be in hell fire, and that is an all-encompassing verse that gives us an aspect to the nature of God in many areas. There is no tolerance for sin. God cannot tolerate sin. We do serve a merciful and a loving and a graceful Lord, but He cannot turn a blind eye to, He cannot supersede His purity and His honesty. God has made it very clear to us that the wages of sin is death. We can look at countless examples through the Old Testament, from Adam and Eve to Sodom and Gomorrah to the consistently rebellious Israelites, and God punishes sin. I want to conclude with Psalm 145. I want to read that in its entirety. It's a little bit long, but I believe it really sums this very nicely. Psalm 145, I will extol you, my God, O King, and I will bless your name forever and ever. Every day I will bless you, and I will praise your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall praise your works to another, and shall declare your mighty acts. I will meditate on the glorious splendor of your majesty, and on your wondrous works. Men shall speak of the might of your awesome acts, and I will declare your greatness. They shall utter the memory of your great goodness, and shall sing of your righteousness. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger and great in mercy. The Lord is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works. And your works shall praise you, O Lord, and your saints shall bless you. They shall speak of the glory of your kingdom, and talk of your power, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts, and the glorious majesty of his kingdom. Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and your dominion endures throughout all generations. The Lord upholds all who fall, and raises up all who are bowed down. The eyes of all look expectantly to you, and you give them their food in due season. You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways, gracious in all his works. The Lord is near to all who call upon him, to all who call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of those who fear him. He also will hear their cry and save them. The Lord preserves all who love him, but all the wicked he will destroy. My mouth shall speak the praise of the Lord, and all flesh shall bless his name, his holy name, forever and ever. Maybe you're here tonight and you're not ready to meet the God that we serve, this God who cannot overlook and cannot tolerate sin. If you have not become a Christian and need to do so at this time to receive the wonderful promise of eternity in heaven through Jesus, we offer this time for you. Or perhaps you've taken the steps and became a Christian but fallen away and need to make things right before you do face the judgment and face this righteous God. We offer this time as we stand and sing.
We really appreciate you watching this channel and supporting the Chapel Grove Church of Christ YouTube page. I want to ask you a quick question. Do you want to help in a big way spread the gospel and help this channel succeed? All you have to do is click the subscribe button, click a thumbs up, and then share it with a friend. Share it on social media, share it on text. However you do it, just share it for other people to see. It helps the channel grow, it helps the videos get out there, and it helps spread the gospel in a really easy way that has a big effect. Thank you for supporting us, and come back for more videos.